Welcome to Sitecore Standard Values. My name is Sultan Semlali. I'm Customer Transformation Director at Sitecore. In this podcast, we continuously seek to provide deeper insights into the value of Sitecore as a solution to business problems. With regular episodes in EMEA from me and my friend Rick in the US, we alternate to bring you a variety of guests to share their perspectives and experiences through a rich tapestry of discussions, opinions, and thoughts experiments. Today, I'm super happy to welcome Ishraq Al Fataftah, who's founder and CTO of Appleztech. Appleztech is a digital customer experience agency and consultation provider specialized in DXP platform. They believe that the best digital experience that you can provide to your customers are the ones who are relatable, reliable, adaptable, and human. And they have a great team of dedicated and authentic, inclusive, and committed team of professionals who share the same vision and value as their customers. So let's talk about Ishraq. She's interesting. She's an 8 times Sitecore MVP. She has collected all of them. She has 15 years of experience in STEM, and it spans across international and local market, including the US, UK, Canada, Europe, the Gulf, and Jordan. We might look for maybe 2 or 3 countries that we're missing, but she's everywhere. She works across multiple time zones, and I'm super happy to have her here. Some highlights from her. So as I said, Sitecore MVP 8 times. Outstanding Leadership Awards in 2022 for Internet 2.0. She was part of the 10 Most Extraordinary Businesswomen of the Year in 2021 from CIO View magazine in the US. Woman of the Year in Technology, Maverick of the Year. So, yeah. And probably the coolest thing is that she has been studying in Sweden as well. So, Ishraq, welcome and great to have you here.
It's my pleasure, and thank you for this introduction. Sometimes you forget what you do, and I do appreciate bringing this up.
Yeah, and I forgot to mention the whole Harry Potter thing. So, yeah. but we can see for the people watching the video, they'll see that she's collecting a lot of Harry Potter books. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so if you love Harry Potter, just connect with her. So I wanted to take this chance today, Ishraq, to reflect actually on the way forward. You work internationally, you see how the market is evolving. But also you work with brands onto how to onboard, train their teams, but also work on accessibility and how can they make experience accessible for their customers. So I wanted to touch down on those 3 topics with you today and kick off by talking composability. So we all talk about it, but what does it mean to you and how do you see the market evolving towards composability?
Sure, and at the beginning, we were thinking about it as a hype. It was like just yet another word has been sent to the mix. Like, yeah, it's something new we need to learn about. But the more you have a better understanding about composability, you start to think, okay, we've been doing some of that for some time. Sometimes there's a gap between our focus typically on the technical and the technology, because this is how we perceive most of these. And we forget sometimes no business decision makers and the different departments in your organization could be actually composable before your tech stack has been composable. So it's nice if someone is thinking still the door open to register to the Sultan, and there's a big path. There's the path to composability. So yes, it's the next big thing. It's where everyone is heading, and in my mind, it's really important. And those who watch many of the sessions that I gave, I always do a mix between business and technology and marketing. And for me, it's you can't focus on one and ignore the other, because when you build technology, you don't go for that for the sake of being on the latest trend or the latest big thing. There's a purpose, there's a reason, there's a goal you want to achieve out of that. And for you as a business, if you want to achieve your business goals and you have to meet the expectations, you need to make sure the technology and the tech stack you're investing in is up to meet these goals. And this is where you would think about composability, like business composability, technology composability, tech stack composability. So it's not only just like from a tech perspective. So you can bring it, it typically one way or the other. It's either, it starts from bottom up. So your technical team or your tech departments would, they heard about this. They started to work with it, something nice, and they start to push it up the chain to talk about, how can I make sure I can create shippable smaller components using multiple technology out there that fits with what we are trying to achieve. Or it could be from top down. So you have a visionary leadership that they think that I should not only stick to a single way of doing things. There's lots of awesome products out there that eventually, if they work together, can achieve my goal. And it goes top down. So there's different approaches to how you see that. There is a different maturity level for you at which, stage in your customer life cycle or your business life cycle you are at. And this is why I try to coin always like digital transformation with a bit with business transformation. You can't think about everything digitally without having the different stakeholders and pieces work with you. And that requires a business transformation in that sense. So composability for me is the ability to be able to produce tangible results in a quick time using multiple, let's say, technology or approaches that align with your business needs without the need to be constantly, looking at it as a risk of change. It's continuous improvement to your process. It's a continuous evolving. It's seeing change as an opportunity rather than a risk.
Yeah, so it's choosing the best tool for the job without being fixed into one single way of working, but then being way more flexible.
Yeah.
So if you have only spoons and what you need is to cut, maybe instead of trying to cut with a spoon, you will just grab a knife and cut it. Yeah. I don't know if that analogy is good, but it just came up into my mind. Maybe because it's almost lunchtime, so that's probably what. And when you work with organization, how do you see the adoption of composability? Is that something that your customers are talking about, or is it still early stage?
So it's funny because yesterday I've delivered this session at Sitecore Group Brazil about Content Hub 1. And we were looking into that famous diagram of the different Sitecore SaaS products. And it's like everyone is talking about that for sure. We've spent more than since 2021 onwards, everyone is talking about, okay, where we are going, what's our plan for the next 3 to 5 years. So this is where most of clients are heading now. Not necessarily everyone is at that stage of adapting or doing the change, but they know in order to compete, in order to gain the competitive advantage, in order to be able to deliver the next 3 to 5 years, we have to make that leap of faith. We need to change the way we traditionally think about things and looking currently where our tech stack is and then building on that. And this is actually most of our conversation since mid last year has been around. It's like, okay, look at our tech stack. Where are we today? Our target is within 2 years, we need to move to headless, for example. Within 3 years, we need to make sure our current solution can interact with CDB because there's nice and cool things out there, right? So the conversation is like having a better understanding of what we have out there in the market, what kind of Sitecore products that we can leverage because we think they're going to be beneficial to our vision, and then to gradually think about that shift. At least from the ones that I worked with, there's no like a jump from this to that. It's not like, we can do it. But definitely a discussion started with the new. So anyone is new to Sitecore, when you want to, talk to them about adopting Sitecore, you would start from here. You start from what is new, what we can deliver, but again, just shaping that around their needs and their possibilities. And this is why I've actually was talking about Content Hub 1, because if we've worked with the clients in the past where they still look at XP as a very complex tool for their content authors, no matter what they have tried. We've tried to scale back. We've tried to make even interfaces on top of Sitecore to make it easier for them, but we still face some struggles. We even work with commerce sites who doesn't even use personalization. It's like, I don't need that. My business is B2B, but still we have a full-fledged XP in front of us. And that, it builds over the cost, the maintenance, and all of that. So by having to choose between multiple mature products, I'm going to say mature with a caveat, because it's mature today, but doesn't mean it's complete, because it evolves as more businesses adapt and we uncover more business needs. But like Content Hub 1 is pretty much headless CMS. It's built for content-first strategy. It's easy to use. Anyone looks into that, they can get in there, build things, deliver. It's pretty much tap into the market where all we need is a simple interface, a place where we build content, and we don't think about that. And this is the nice thing about the composable architecture and composable thinking. And we face this with the client who works with insurance. So we are in the process of, we've done the upgrade to Sitecore 10, so that step has been good. And they're in the process of unifying their brand. So they migrate all their different other websites and things that they have into the single site. So there's lots of work is happening, but then they have only a Spanish site with a couple of pages that they need to move to Sitecore. And the planning is like, how are we going to do a microsite within the current? It's going to clash with the unification of one brand that we're building. And the quick answer for that is like, yeah, we can just build it on something like that, SaaS, quick migration. It's out there, it's migrated, it's on your domain. And then when you are ready to migrate it back, or maybe it's still in there. So now we have more options than before, when we used to have only single platform who does everything, try to customize it to fit your needs and all of it.
Yeah, there are some very interesting benefits from a scaling and speed perspective. And if you go one step deeper, so you have customers, clients you're working with who are either leveraging Sitecore on the path to composable future. How do you approach training and onboarding the people? Because I think we are, as software vendors, we are great at sharing the amazing story and how great the technology is. At the end of the day, it needs to be used by people. So how do you see actually making people successful using the technology, enabling them, onboarding them, and making sure they get the most out of it?
Yeah, and this is also a key and prominent part of this discussion to composability. Because if you just go back in time and follow like the path, the Sitecore journey towards composability, there has been lots of things that came out and then they are no longer relevant, or trends around like, does backend developers need it anymore? How everyone needs to switch to be a front end nowadays, because the technology is changing pretty much very fast. Everyone is trying to push and speed into the path towards being on the latest thing, and then something change, we're jumping to something new and jumping to something new. And they, like with certain clients, we stepped into a halt. It was like, no, I don't want to keep up with Sitecore anymore with all these changes, because my logistics doesn't allow me to go now and ditch my entire backend developers and hire a new front end, for example, or to train my developers who actually have inability to find, Sitecore developers out there to hire as a client, because we're not talking now about the agency, I'm talking about the end client. This is why they hire agencies, because the Sitecore resources is still at scarcity in certain locations, so it's not that easy to get them. But the question would be, okay, if I want to train them, the Sitecore way of doing things, I'm going to say it's traditional and then just walk into composability, means you need to understand how Sitecore works. You need to understand how to develop in Sitecore. You need to understand how content authors work. You need to understand how marketers work, because you can't just work in isolation. It's not about building a button out there and your job is done. There's a ramification for every single line of code that you do. And when you do scaling, you deploy and all of that, there's lots of things you need to keep in mind. So going into that path, just say like, yeah, I'm going to go through the Sitecore official training and that's enough. That's never the case, because what you learn is just scratching the surface of it. And much often we come up into projects that has been out there for a time, right? It's not always the happy case scenario where I built something from scratch. More often now, new hires, they need to learn the architecture of the solution. Why did development teams previously build it this way? Why did we go into this technology and not that one? They don't have that context. And they might come up fresh, they want to change things, but then they hit with limitations. Like, we have lots of technical debts that we can't fix because we don't have the budget, so we had to live with this over time. So it's not like and this is like the logistics of an organization. It's not limited to Sitecore stuff. So my approach to this is like, this is a continuous learning opportunity. If your development team, and this is something I often tell like new hires, don't judge yourself on how fast you're gonna learn Sitecore, because most likely you're gonna need at least 1 year. I'm telling you confidently, say, I know how Sitecore works and I can do that. So it's not reflection on you, it's a journey. You're part of that journey. The nice thing with the composable stuff is that the teams that you have today, you don't have to do much changes. So it's not like you need to hire more Sitecore folks. If you decouple the way your teams are structured now, when we talk about composability, something that comes to mind is Mac architecture. You talk about microservices. You talk about APIs. You talk about headless. So you have more now well-structured teams around single piece of information. If I'm going to build a commerce, if I want to update my shopping cart, you can have your backend team just worry about adding products, interaction with BIM. Think about it purely from an agnostic perspective to technology, because you don't have to be a Sitecore developer to build an add to cart functionality. It's common knowledge that everyone works with. Then, yeah, there's an agnostic approach to it. Doesn't necessarily to be a Sitecore developer to do that, but then having the headless into that means your front-end team doesn't need to be trained on Sitecore. They can still build that application in their own language, Next.js, React, whatever they know. Then you have your Sitecore folks who know how that can be built in Sitecore. They can build it, and then you can bring everything together. So it's no longer a burden that every time you need to have Sitecore training, Sitecore knowledge. It's more of understanding how you can retrofit your stack, your team's capacity into the right places and allow them to grow. Much often we talk about having a plan. So we have a training plan, and that has to be within the context of still content authors, marketers, and all of that. You can't live without it. You can't just assume I'm going to build only for the English-speaking market today, because you guaranteed 2-3 years down the line, your business going to adapt other languages. And then suddenly, no, I don't have any support to multi-languages. We can't think about solution this way. Yes, there's a need to quick delivery, but there's still a way you can follow recommended practices. And I don't like best practice, because best practices change all the time. It's like recommended practice at this time, and there is these practices and architectural principles that's transcended, that's always going to be there. So there's different ways of doing that. The most important thing is to be intentional about everything that you do. You need to stay current in terms of learning what's out there and just to resist the urge to do the change until you understand the full life cycle of what that change is going to bring. Because like dev teams, and I deal with this with the dev teams, like always like, yeah, there's a new release for this, let's jump to that. It's like, no, it doesn't work like this. It's nice to be on the next best thing, but it's better if that next best thing gonna last for me in the next 5 to 10 years, because businesses, brands doesn't always afford this frequent change. But if again, if we think about composability as part of your business and not only part of your technology, this means your leadership are also prone to change. They're used to change. They are on the offense rather than the defense, right? It's not just like because now my tech stack can't support my business need anymore, I need to do the change. No, they understand that always need to plan and leave a room for a training. I need to leave a room for a change, for an upgrade to my system. So it doesn't come as a surprise. It's planned. It's part of my vision. It's part of where I want my team and their capabilities to be in the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah. Yeah, and that must be tough, I think, to combine that urge for the new thing while looking in the future. So I think we all fall prey to that. Oh, there's a new version. Oh, and yeah, then you get it's getting too exciting. And I liked how you touched also the I think international part of it. So how do you expand globally with other languages? But I think it also touches some points around accessibility, which I wanted to talk with you about today. So the accessibility market or disability market, if we look at it, I read that it's larger than China. So we talk about 1.85 billion people and $1.9 trillion in annual disposable income. So it's like a huge market. And I remember seeing a tweet from someone that said, pretty funny actually, looked, step one, try to buy a product online using my iPad or my phone. Step two, try to zoom in. Step three, it doesn't zoom, go to another site. And I think it's something we all recognize. But still, a lot of brands are not working on that. So how are you, in your advisory and you work with brands, how do you help them actually get to that accessibility path and make sure that every content being made actually or experiences are accessible to everyone?
Yeah, it's a lost opportunity for many brands, that's for sure. It's a competitive advantage once they realize how much share. This is like a way just to convince them that there's a market that needs to be covered, besides like the moral and ethical aspect of it, because everyone should have an equal opportunity to all of that. And if we look at what happened during COVID, right? The inability for many of us to have access to certain products and services, that's by itself what we call a temporary disability, because it doesn't have to be physical. It doesn't have to be, like our stereotype of disability, like a mother just holding her baby and trying to order online. That's considered a temporary disability because she only can use a single hand, one hand to do all of that, right? I spoken about that in a conference in Dubai last year, and the responses are from people just to realize, like, yeah, you can't like minimize the concept of disability into one thing. Each one of us during your lifetime has been a situation that if you go and look into how we define disability in today's context, you have been there more often than you think, and you had that need. And the way I look at it is just like, I don't want to wait until it becomes a law like privacy and GDPR. I've learned about this, as you've mentioned, I was in Sweden. So we've touched based on this back in 2014 and 2015, even before it becomes a law in the EU. So there's always part of the academia and part of the legal sphere where things move sometimes not fast enough to keep up with technology. But look at the business, they always come at the last level in that chain to adapt to these things, because now you have to be fine. Now you have to be compliant. Otherwise you will be at risk, right? So we came, like in recent years, to think about privacy by design, right? So you always have that in the back of your head. There's always design solution, you build solution, consent, how I can give you the option to opt out or to anonymize and all of that. And accessibility the same. I don't have to wait for 5-10 years. I don't know how long it's going to take until it becomes a law for you to adapt, to make sure your sites are inclusive, your sites allows and like give you a seamless experience, just moving from desktop to mobile to even screen readers and all of that. You have to make sure you design for accessibility or accessibility by design. And this means not only the technology. Again, we keep thinking about technical stuff, but it even starts from your business requirements, from your design stage, from your project manager. When you come up and start a new project, like when you win a bid, right? This is when things start, and you start to think about, I'm gonna put my schedule, I'm gonna estimate, I'm gonna put all of that. That's where these things need to be accommodated as you think now, because all the design is going towards mobile first approach in the past couple of years. Now you always have in your plan and estimation, like, yeah, everything's need to be responsive. It has to be working on mobile, and this is just yet another dimension. So it doesn't need to be like a developer who does that. It has to start from the beginning. Like, yeah, there's a market I need to test against, and I think I came across, or I was working with a client back in 2021. They're a tourism agency. They're a government entity. And we launched the website. We were looking into Sitecore Analytics. I like that tool, by the way. It always gives me ability to uncover, verticals we were not thinking about. And we've seen lots of screen readers and the devices and the channels for those who visited the site. Like, okay, does our website accessible? If I go to a screen reader and I use that to read or to navigate and do all of that, does it work? And the answer was like, unfortunately, not that much. So that's a huge amount of traffic, customers, and business value that you're losing just because you don't think about this from the beginning. It becomes as an afterthought. And this is what we try to promote. Again, as we all know, like, technology becomes so fast that we as a human can barely keep up with. But if we, again, just remind ourselves, we put a human as the center of everything that we build, that's the value that we want to achieve. I might have the latest technology. I might have a business on the metaverse, but it does nothing for my clients, nothing for my customers, nothing for my business. It doesn't say, because at certain point, I remember every bid you have to do, especially here in the region, there's always a mobile app with the website, and it has significant no value to have a mobile app. But because everyone is doing it, you have to have it. Like, even with the metaverse and accessibility, because I give that as an example, they give you options, like if you are disabled, if you are an amputee, to grow up a leg. But the question is, like, we spend so much time trying to normalize that it's okay to be an amputee. We have everything that's needed for you to work and live and be as normal as anyone else. But like, now you have this option, like, thinking about it as being whole. So you see, like, technology can be either hindering what we are trying to do or could be helping you with that. But the best thing is, again, just be intentional with the things that you do. Understand why we are doing these things. Understand why technology is going there, because there's a value of that, and not just because. And this is what I try to always talk about when we're talking about recommending some of the Sitecore products, for example. Is like, are you sure this is the right thing for you? It's not just because Sitecore now offering this, it means you have to jump to that. What it means, now we have options. And options means, like, I can pick and choose what is best to my business. So technology is used to adapt to your business needs rather than your business needs to adapt to what technology you have at hand now.
Yeah, it's the egg and chicken story, and the shiny object situation. So this Sitecore is called Sitecore Standard Values, and so as we ask every guest, what is your standard value, Ishraq?
I'm trying to shorten that as a simple sentence, where I'm going to give you a paragraph, most likely. My standard value is always think about your customer, your content author, your marketer before you think about the line of code that you're writing. These are the main stakeholders that you are continuously in a Sitecore context working with. And you can't just think about, I'm not developing a component for the sake of a component. I'm developing this for these three main audiences. These are your audiences. Build it intentionally for these audiences.
Yeah. Wow. It's powerful. So build with intention and for an audience and for users.
Yeah.
I think that's
my mantra.
Yeah. I think that's a strong mantra. And probably the line of the entire conversation that we had. So, Ishraq, I want to thank you for taking the time today, doing the interview. I really enjoyed and learned a lot, and not only about Harry Potter, even though we haven't touched about it.
Yeah.
And I think you'll be at SuckCon. I was double checking, but I think you'll be at SuckCon, where you'll be presenting the move to Composable and how marketers need to address. Yeah. And in an Ishraq fashion, it will not be technical, it will not be marketing, it will be complete,
something in
holistic.
between.
Yeah. It's amazing. So, Ishraq, thank you so much. I wish you an amazing day. And everyone listening or watching, if you're at SuckCon over a few weeks, go and attend her session. I'm sure it will be amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure to join you, and looking forward to see you as well.
You too. Bye-bye.
All right.